This is the emergency action plan for Kuhlman Corporation Yard 1. At Yard 1, Stan Radabaugh and Marty Levin have overall responsibility for implementing this plan. Ben Lindsay and Richard Moore will assist in their respective buildings and areas. In case of emergency, Marty or Stan will call Harley Mays or Terry Schaefer at the main office to discuss the situation and determine whether to activate the emergency procedures. In the event that Harley or Terry cannot be reached, or if there's no time to make the phone call, the most senior manager at Yard 1 has a full authority to implement this plan. So if for some reason Marty or Stan are not available, the most senior employee at Yard 1 can implement the plan. And if they can't get a hold of Terry or Harley, the most senior employee at the corporate office can assist with the plan. If an emergency happens, medical, fire, or any other, we're going to call 911. Just remember, we might forget this, we're under the stress of an emergency. If you're using a desktop phone, you have to hit 9 first to get an outside line and then hit 911. So 911 from a desktop phone, 911 from your cell phone, or you can contact the concrete dispatch using a radio in your truck with instructions that they call 911. If you've called 911 and Stan and Marty are not aware, respond to them, report it immediately to Stan and Marty, and they'll respond based on the scope and type of the incident. Other reporting that's required if we had a serious incident that resulted in the death of an employee, that has to be reported to OSHA within 8 hours, any day of the year. And any incident that would result in overnight hospitalization, amputation, or loss of an eye must be reported to OSHA within 24 hours. We're going to inform employees in the event of an emergency. We're going to use radios to contact those operators and truck drivers that use radios. Those in the warehouse will use voice commands and to inform them of the emergencies. We can use telephone to reach the batch plant and to reach employees at ConCycle. In the event of a tornado, if we have a tornado warning, Stan and Marty will account for employees and visitors in the concrete area. Ben and Richard will account for employees and visitors at ConCycle in the building materials area. If you're near or at the maintenance building, we're going to seek shelter in the center hallway of the maintenance building that connects the two garages, the operator's garage from the truck garage. Marty has responsibility to make sure all personnel are accounted for and in that gathering area. In the area of the batch plant, visitors should go to the admixture storage room or to the center hallway in the maintenance building, time permitting. Again, Marty account for personnel from the batch plant. In the building materials warehouse area, KBMF warehouse area, we're going to gather in the restrooms in the building materials office warehouse. Ben and Richard have responsibility to make sure employees and visitors are accounted for. In a ConCycle, visitors should go to low-lying area, visitors and employees. If there's not time to get to Yard 1, if there's time to get to Yard 1, they should go to Yard 1, preferably meet in that center hallway in the maintenance building or in the restrooms in the building materials office. If we have blizzards or other weather conditions, we're going to communicate that through Stan and Marty. If this happens during work hours, we might send employees home early. Let's say we have snow, heavy snowfall, roads are getting slick. We might go to a level 1 snow emergency or a level 2. If we see a pending level 3, we may send some employees home early, those that aren't working at loading up rock salt. And if a level 3 happens outside of work hours and it's not legal to drive on the roads, we won't be coming into work, again, unless your supervisor needs you to come in and load rock salt trucks. So contact your supervisor in the event of snow emergencies or any other type of weather-related emergency if you have any question about whether or not you should report to work. Medical emergencies, again, 911. Remember, desktop phone, 911, cell phone, 911, or radio to contact dispatch asking that they call 911. Employees that are trained in first aid and CPR are authorized to do first aid and CPR. There is an automated external defibrillator located in the garage office. This is a great tool for both use as a defibrillator and as a CPR aid. It can instruct the CPR responder, trained employee, whether or not compressions are needed, whether or not the compressions are fast enough, whether or not compressions are deep enough. Great tool. We've invested in those for use in an emergency. If there's no one to, whether or not anyone can help someone in that emergency, either way, we're going to comfort any injured person until the arrival of an emergency response team that we've called 911 to get on their way. If we have a fire, explosion, toxic gas leaks, any of these major events, we're going to respond based on the severity of the incident. Again, we're going to call 911, and we may or may not need to order an evacuation of Yard 1. If the fire is small enough and we can contain it to a small area, we may not need to evacuate the whole yard. Maybe we need to evacuate a building. Again, in the event of a small fire, we're going to call 911, get fire response on their way in case the fire gets out of control while we're trying to fight it with a fire extinguisher. If we have a chemical spill that can be cleaned up by employees, that's fine. We do want to consult the safety data sheet for the product that has spilled to make sure we have the proper personal protective equipment to clean it up safely. If there's any possibility that we can't clean it up safely, we're going to wait and call hazardous or emergency response team phone number to be shown later on in this plan. In the event of the emergency is large enough that we need to evacuate a portion or all of Yard 1, say we have a major fire, the possibility of an explosion, our first priority is to safely evacuate everyone, both employees and visitors. If we have truck drivers picking up product, delivering product, we have anybody that's there making a sales call on us, any customers in the building materials area, we need to get everybody evacuated. Any customers or visitors would be allowed to get in their vehicle and leave. Any employees need to be evacuated and accounted for and given permission to leave. But here's the evacuation instructions from the maintenance building area. We're going to exit to Coolman Drive in the primary route. Or if the primary exit is blocked by a hazardous condition, then the alternate route would be out the southeast truck gate. Either route that you take, we're going to meet across the street from the main gate in the grassy area. So Marty and Stan have responsibility and must make sure that all employees or visitors are accounted for. Time permitting, Marty or Stan will contact Tony, Jason, or Brian to shut down the main electrical panel and close all doors and windows in the maintenance building. So Tony, Jason, Brian, just be aware of your roles, time permitting in an emergency to shut down the electrical and deal with doors and windows. In the batch plant area, we're going to exit again Coolman Drive, main entrance. If that is blocked, we're going to exit the secondary exit. And we're going to meet again in the grassy area across the street. Marty and Stan have responsibility making sure all employees are accounted for out of the batch plant. And again, Scott, Todd, you have responsibilities here, time permitting, close doors and windows, shut down electric, pneumatics, and hydraulics in the boiler if the boiler is in operation. Continuing here with building materials and the warehouse areas, we're going to exit out that main gate again, meet across the street in the grassy area. If that is blocked, then we're going to go through that secondary exit. Ben and Richard have primary responsibility to make sure all employees and visitors are accounted for. We can use radio to contact outside trucking companies in the yard. Time permitting, we will shut down the utilities in the building materials office and warehouse and close all doors and windows. In KBMF bulk materials area, all visitors and personnel exit Coolman Drive main entrance again or the alternate route and meet in that field across the street. Ben and Richard, responsibility for contacting operators by radio, letting them know we need to evacuate. Operators, you make sure all truck drivers are accounted for and evacuated, whether or not they're dropping off or picking up material. Time permitting, Stan and Marty will let Shane Davis and Tony Bratz know to shut down the building's main electrical panels. So Shane and Tony, be aware of that responsibility, time permitting before evacuation. Here's a map of the facility, noting the primary exit out that main gate. KBMF, you can see your secondary exit out that back gate where rail cars come through. Secondary exit from the maintenance garage area, from the concrete batch plant, from building materials. Secondary exit out there towards the truck wash area and the exit for trucks after they've been loaded, the concrete trucks. Also on this map, you can see in red at the top of the page, the evacuation meeting area in that grassy area across the street. Also be aware of hydrant locations. These are all hydrants located on our property. So they're maintained by the company and outside vendors. And these are hydrants that the fire department can hook up to, and we want to make them aware of these locations should they be needed. So again, just to review, 911, if we've started to evacuate, we'll want to make sure 911 has been called. We want to account for all employees and visitors. We must check in with Stan or Marty before we depart the site. We can't have you just get in your car and take off. We need to make sure you're accounted for, so when the emergency personnel show up, we're not sending them inside a building looking for you when you've already left and on your way home. We're going to make sure we've contacted Harley or Terry Schaefer at the main office to let them know what's going on. If they're not available, we're going to contact the most senior manager at the corporate office that's available to assist. We're going to make sure we contact the EPA if the emergency is a major spill, or the FBI if it's a bomb or a terrorist threat. Any emergency responders that show up, whether it be fire, police, we want to get the names, phone numbers of top administrative personnel there so we can reach them afterwards should the need arise. And we want to get a hold of Concrete Dispatch so they can get in touch with mixer trucks that are out making deliveries so we can route them away from yard one. If we evacuated, we don't want them to come back to the yard. We'll probably route them to the Williams plant in Maumee, but dispatch can coordinate that with Stan or Marty. Likewise, Ben or Richard can reroute building materials delivery trucks if they're out making deliveries and maybe heading back to yard one. Handling the media, it's important to realize that when a major event occurs, media will show up, media will look for comment, media wants to put a story on the news that's entertaining to their customers. So our company policy is only the president or a vice president of the company may speak to the media on behalf of the company. So please refer all media questions to Ken Coolman, company president, at 419-897-6000. If Ken's not available, the receptionist could route the call to the vice president, or they could wait for Ken to contact them. Media tends to distort the story, maybe misquote. So that's the reason for this policy. If you have any questions, need more information, or your roles or duties under this plan, please contact Stan, Harley, Terry, or myself, Steve Grau. Here's some emergency phone numbers that you'll want to have on hand. should the need arise. So if you keep a copy of this plan at your work area, ready to grab in case of an emergency, you not only have what the details are of the plan, but you'd also have some of these emergency phone numbers to use in the event of emergency. You can see at the bottom there was the phone number for that hazardous materials spills National Response Center that can help if we have a large spill that we can't clean up, or a small spill that we can't safely clean up. So again, have any questions, please seek Stan, Marty, or myself. Thank you for your attention.